Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I'm Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of Menace under Marswood by Sterling E. Lanier. This is a classic sci-fi from Del Rey from 1983. And yes, my hair is in a ponytail today because it's raining and I had did my hair and then it went frizzy and crazy and I was like, well, they can't have that. So this is one of my classic sci-fi book reviews, meaning I'm going to do a spoiler-free review at the start, and then I'm going to go into my classic sci-fi bingo where I kind of just talk about stuff in the book. So, an entertaining trek through the forest, Menace Under Marswood unfortunately lacks a great deal of tension. That's not to say the book isn't a decent sci-fi story, it's just that Mars feels a whole lot like Earth. So what is it about? Seven against the unknown. For centuries, the human outcasts of Mars lived wild, independent lives in the Martian outback called Ruck. But then the mysterious men of the new clan came to preach total rebellion against the mother planet, and that Earth's UN command could not allow. So it sent a team of its best officers to learn the secrets of the new clan. Unfortunately, to do the job right, the Terrans would have to cooperate with their worst enemies, the Ruckers. Mother Ruckers? Anyway, in truth, while this book was easy to read and easy to follow, I was never really pulled into the world building or the plot. We have a terraformed Mars that's just a huge forest with some kind of mutated animals. There are some old structures that raise some interesting questions, but overall, it's just kind of a lot of wandering in the woods, followed by a very rushed conclusion. And if you've heard me talk about it on this channel before, one of the things I don't like about Lord of the Rings is how much walking in the woods there is. So you can tell my opinion on that. Part of the problem is that the characters are extremely flat. The main character, a person of color actually, which is surprising for this time period, named Mohammed Slater, was unique only in that he wasn't the standard white dude. In fact, this is the most diverse classic sci-fi I've read, aside from like Octavia Butler and Samuel Delany, of course. I was like, wow, okay, it's great. Slater had virtually no background, and his insta-love with Donna, one of the two female characters, leaves much to be desired in terms of sexual tension and even romance. The other characters, Donna included, are uninteresting and flat as cardboard. Even the villain is flat, and he's on the page for like 10 pages. So the story could have been a really fun military sci-fi romp, but it's just a lot of plotting because the characters just kind of have boring conversations and we don't learn a lot about any of them. Now, it does move at a fast clip, and there are some interesting concepts in it. There are, including a rather unique idea regarding Mars colonization that I did really enjoy. It's just, overall, it's a little slow and kind of easily forgettable. I will say, though, the word suddenly in this book drove me through the rucking roof. It was just so overused. Every 5 seconds, suddenly. It's like, no, suddenly should be used like twice in a book. Anyway, the thing is, I didn't dislike the book. I actually really enjoyed it. It's like a solid 3-star read for me. I like it. If someone really likes classic sci-fi, it's like, yeah, sure, check out this one, I do wish I had this cover, though. It's way better than this one. I mean, this one's fine, but this cover's also misleading because this is like one tiny scene in the book, and these dudes, not in it a lot. So that's a spoiler for you, I guess. There is a few things I liked, though. There's a little crab-like creature named Grabbit that was so cute. I loved that. I was like, oh, just give me a book just about Grabbit. And then, of course, the quote, Ultima Ratio Regis, the last argument of kings, an expression I really like for some reason. I just think it's fun, kind of like, brute force, the approach of kings and the king of approaches, which I quote all the time whenever I need to, like, shove something out of the way. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about this book. Now I'm going to move into my classic sci-fi bingo, where I'm going to talk about kind of more stuff in this book and kind of expand on what I talked about in my spoiler-free part. So here we go. So, outdated science. Does this book have outdated science? It doesn't have a ton, but it does have one particular thing that I thought was quite funny. Therefore, I impose the highest classification of military security. All mail will be censored from now on, and letters will be completely rewritten if any hint of what we are doing appears. He paused, rose from his seat, and unrolled a big map of their operational hemisphere of the planet that hung on the wall behind him. They're like, we're on Mars, we've colonized it, but we still have to mail letters home to Earth via physical mail. Like, what do? Do they write them and then put them in the post office, and the post office, like, puts them on a spaceship and takes them... I love it. I absolutely love it. Spaceship explodes or crashes. There are no spaceships in this one. Social changes, yes, definitely. So we have the entire society on Mars. That's a social change for you. They're called the Ruckers and the Greenies. These are their nicknames. So the people on Mars. So basically, when they colonized Mars, a bunch of people moved there, and then they were like, we don't want to be part of Earth anymore. We want to have our own society on Mars, and we want to do it our way. And then they kind of like took off into the wilderness and started making their own kind of societies. And then we have the Greenies, which is technically because Earth is green, I guess. These are the Earth people, and they're like a military force on there. They're trying to like keep control of Mars because they do kind of still have control of it. The Ruckers are kind of like a rebellion in a way. It's not very, it's clear, but it's also not like super fleshed out like this. You're not going to find like a political thing like in The Expanse with this, but I mean, it was an interesting kind of take, and it's enough that you understand kind of the stakes in the novel, even though I would say the stakes aren't really that high. Let's see here. There's also a couple other little things. Yeah, there's a whole thing about capitalist America and Eurovisionist Russia and China and stuff, but it's very long and I'm not going to read it. It's actually not super different from today. So it's not. So yes, definitely social changes. He predicted them. Sexy female scientist. So we do have one. This is Mohini. She is a spy. Her involvement in the plot literally amounts to nothing. She is there to be sexy, and I think that's about it. Let's see. She is described as, which I loved, waiting for them at the entrance to the hospital section was the pet frustration of the unattached males on the post. Lieutenant of Intelligence, because she can't be a military intelligence? I don't know. Lieutenant of Intelligence, Mohini Laldut, all 6 feet of her gorgeous body in medical whites. She did not stand at attention, simply waved a pretty hand. She's, yeah. She's definitely a sexy female scientist. She has a scientific background, so that suits. There's also a thing that made me laugh that was very funny. Let's see here. But Slater did not think he would care to be in Mohini de Medwar's shoes if Feng happened to lay hands on her. What a ghastly waste of fantastic bed material, Slater thought ruefully. That's awful. Anyway, so if you want an example of a sexy female scientist, there you go. Fantastic bed material. Does nothing for the plot. Anyway, cool aliens. No, I'm not giving this a check mark because they're not cool. They're very generic. They're barely in the book. I got some descriptions for you. They're not super. The hands lifted, one to each side of the ball helmet. The fingers were twice the length of a man's, and there seemed to be too many of them. Even the creature's sleek gloves did not disguise their strangeness. Okay, lifts his head, etc. 2 immense eyes, lambent jet in color, ran far around each side of a large rounded head. The head itself came to a blunt point at the top rear. What? It had no hair, and its skin was a very light blue. 2 vertical nostrils pierced a nose that was more of a muzzle, short and blunt. Higher than human ears would be were the blunt cones, such as those they had seen on the column head and the helmets of blah blah blah. So yeah, it very kind of generic aliens. They're like, they're blue skinned, they kind of look like us with no hair. Like it's like the most typical description of aliens you could ever think. So yeah, not cool. Alien romance, no. Generation ship, no. Space soldiers, no, they're not in space. They're on Mars, which is a planet. So I would say they're not space soldiers. They're not trained to fight in space. They don't have email, so I don't think they have like space battles. AI and robots, very briefly. The 4th member of JB's group was short and very wide, but had no head, only a dome speckled with dots of light. More than anything else, the thing looked like an upright cannon shell or giant bullet gleaming with a metallic blue shimmer. Where the light sparked was something more clear, like a smoky plastic. A metal spike rose from its blunt point, and 3 pointed tentacles of coiling metal sprang from its midsection. This thing literally does nothing. It just kind of shoots that stuff. It's not very interesting, but it is a robot. New worlds. Yes, I guess Mars counts. It is technically a new world that we can't live on right now. What does it look like? It had not surprised earlier scientists at all to find that Mars possessed a native plant life. Many were surprised, though, at its complexity. Save for a few thoughtful exobiologists, no one had realized that if Mars was truly a dying world, its oxygen locked up in its soil, any surviving forms of life would probably be extremely sophisticated rather than the simple mosses or lichen of the earlier speculations. The plants of Mars were fantastic, both in appearance and in their methods of living. So basically, to terraform Mars, they just shot a bunch of oxygen and water at it, and then the plants just like grew back. Would that it would be that easy? But anyway, cyberpunk? No cyberpunk. Sexism. Okay, so this is one of those books that attempts to be progressive about gender but doesn't quite hit the mark. It's not sexist. It's just very dated. I mean, sexy female scientists. It's a trope. She's not treated that egregiously. She at least has a job and she has motivations. So, I mean, she's not a bad character. She's just like kind of a stereotypical femme fatale character. But nobody in this story is very deep. So I can't really like if she had been the only one that had like no backstory or no kind of nothing aside from her outward actions, then I would be kind of like, okay, but no, because because all the men are kind of boring too. It's not like. So the Ruckers are a matriarchal society, apparently, but we don't meet any of the female leaders, which, because all of their consuls are men, he kind of like explains it in that like they don't meet with outside forces. They send these dudes in their stead. But it seems like the dudes are making pretty important decisions. So it doesn't seem like they're running anything by the women because they don't obviously have internet to like call each other. So it just kind of felt like a flat attempt at at making a different society. It's like, ooh, matriarchy. That's not really a matriarchy. There's also this whole thing with like the wise woman, of which Donna is one, which is like these women that somehow can like predict the future and have visions. I don't know. It kind of feels like a ripoff of Dune, of the Bene Gesserit a little bit. And it also feels like more than anything the mystic woman trope rather than actual modern leadership. So I was kind of like, nah, this didn't really work. You tried, but it died. I will say though, as I said, there's no real sexism in the book because Donna and Mohini, as I said, despite her being a sexy female scientist, they have agency. Mohini is a femme fatale and nothing more, but Donna does help the men in the forest. She doesn't fight, but she uses her mystical women powers to sense danger, and she also points out a whole bunch of stuff the guys miss, like when they're trapped in a cave. She's like, we can get out that way, and they're like, oh, and they listen to her. They don't just like dismiss her, where sometimes in old classic books and movies, a woman will say something and then I'll just keep talking. And I don't know why they even include those things. I guess because it's based on reality at the time. But this doesn't happen here. The men actually like listen to her. She's definitely not, that woman from Siege Perilous that kind of sat in the corner and did nothing the whole time. She also has sexual agency and makes all the moves on Slater. The women are, in truth, quite flat, but so are the men. So I don't think the women are poorly depicted at all. Forerunner technology. Yes, I love Forerunner technology. They find tunnels with ancient non-human carvings, and then the alien himself and his domicile. So that was kind of fun. Behind them in the misty amber light reared an odd structure surrounded by 20-foot walls of red stone, smooth yet weathered. Above and within loomed 4 domes of the same material, set like a clump of mushrooms. Metal structures, like strange blue antennae, quickly appeared at the tops of 2 of the domes. At the same time, the section of the stone wall at the path's end began to roll up and back like a flexible metal sheet. So I thought that was cool. LGBTQ+. So it seems at one point that Donna is in a poly relationship with 2 of her friends, Breen and some man I can't remember because all the men are alike except for Slater, Mueller, and Nakamura, so I don't know which one he is. So at one point, Slater and Donna obviously like each other. I think they've made out a couple times, and then Donna says in passing that she has 2 husbands, and Slater is really confused by this, and then he's like, mulling it over. He doesn't like get mad or anything. He just has to like think about it, whether he could handle that, I guess, because I guess he loves her enough that he's willing to like make some changes in his mind view or his worldview. And I was like, this is progressive. I was like, wow. And then 100 pages later, after we've teased this out for so long, she reveals that husbands is an honorific and they're like brothers. So no. It's something that I thought was interesting, and I was like, wow. Yeah, so nope. It's not really LGBTQ+, but I think it fit in that kind of, because it's a, a sexual relationship that at the time was not seen as normal. So what else do we have? Portals, no. No microfiche, and the MC is a dick. No, Slater's actually a pretty good dude. Racial equality, there is tons of racial equality in this book. As I said, Slater is a person of color. Donna, I can't remember. Nakamura is half Japanese, half Nordic, which I was like, that'd be like a really hot combination. And then there's also a whole bunch of other people. I think the villain as well. There's people of color in the upper echelons of the military. I'm pretty sure everyone is of mixed race. The only thing I wasn't sure of was this line. An anthropologist had once described Rucker mannerisms as a blend of Eskimo gentleness, Muslim fanaticism, and the quick-draw psychology of the American West. I was like, I don't know what that's supposed to, if that's racist or what. I don't know. I just was like, okay. I also liked that the ruck, which is the Mars forest, is named after a Hindi word for forest. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Normally in like classic Western sci-fi, not like I've read any Eastern classic sci-fi, send me some titles if you guys have any suggestions. Normally that would be named after like some famous landmark in like US or England, but I really liked that they used a word from, a non-Western word, and I was like, that's cool. So yeah, definitely racial equality, except for that one line that I was like, okay, it's weird. Plasma or other future stuff. So hypnotapes, which is kind of like you listen to it and then you absorb the information. This was all the rage in classic sci-fi. They're like, yeah, you just put this box on your head and then the knowledge just goes right into your brain. It's like, okay. Just ways to be lazy, I guess. This one. Slater switched the rifle lever past narcotic. Slater switched the rifle lever past narcotic and explosive to poison. Classic sci-fi loves their multi-purpose guns. How in the world would you store all of that stuff in one rifle? I have no idea. I'm looking at you, Zorg, as well. You answer the question. Let's see. Post-apocalyptic, no. Assassins, no. Galactic war, no. Tech similar to today. Just squeezed in there with a mini camera. Yes, today we do have small-ass cameras as well. This was a camera they had in like their bottom of their knife hilt. And I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, actually. And look, we have a bingo. Sexy female scientist for the win. This does not pass the Bechdel test, nor does it have any of my quick pick bonus. But it got a real bingo, so that's great. Good for you, Mission to Marswood, or whatever you are. Menace under Marswood. So yeah, overall, I mean, not bad. It's not bad. It's just like not like the most exciting classic sci-fi I've ever read. Yeah, not enough aliens. Thanks.